The daughter-in-law and father were taking a bath in the same bathhouse. Not only did they have no awkwardness at all, Egbert even called over Lagertha and Athelstan. The four of them were in the bathhouse, frankly facing each other. It must be said, the speed of their development was indeed surprising. Originally, the atmosphere on the scene was quite harmonious. Unexpectedly, as Lagertha and Egbert chatted, they couldn't restrain themselves a bit. This made Judith on the side a bit embarrassed, so she hurriedly found an excuse to slip away. Athelstan also tactfully followed her out. Athelstan found Judith and pretentiously asked her why she suddenly left when she was enjoying her bath. Judith was a little shy to speak, but she still told Athelstan her true thoughts.
I wanted something to happen between you and me. Right there in the water, in front of them, I didn't care. It was wrong of me. I'm married. I have a child. I'm a Christian.
Nothing happened and you've done no wrong.
Athelstan refused Judith on the grounds that he was a servant of the Lord. This made Judith heartbroken, and she could only leave alone. Athelstan returned and happened to see the intimate scene of Lagertha and Egbert in the bathhouse. On Ragnar's side, after experiencing yesterday's great battle, a deep gash was left on his abdomen. Ragnar lay on the grass, in too much pain to speak. Just then, Quenthrith slowly walked towards him. Quenthrith looked around and found no one, so she shyly lifted her skirt and squatted over Ragnar's wound. Before long, a puddle of liquid appeared on Ragnar's wound. Such a strange way of healing wounds was a first, but from Ragnar's expression, it could be seen that his symptoms seemed to have indeed eased. They talked about Egbert. Quenthrith advised Ragnar not to trust Egbert lightly. Egbert only ever cared about his own interests. Ragnar said he didn't fight for Egbert, he only fought for his people. After chatting for a while, Quenthrith asked about Ragnar's injury again.
It still hurts.
Quenthrith smiled charmingly and told Ragnar to lie down. While Ragnar was being intimate with another woman, little did he know that his wife Aslog would also give him a green hat in return. During these days when Ragnar was away on his expedition, Aslog, who stayed behind, along with Siggy and Floki's wife Helga, all had a strange dream at the same time. They dreamed of a man walking through the snow, but his feet made no sound. In one hand was a burning snowball, and the other hand was full of blood. The blood dripped onto the snow and even gave off smoke. They didn't understand what this meant, until a few days later, a wanderer came to the territory. He sought help from Helga, and the wanderer's right hand was dripping with blood, exactly the same as the scene they saw in the dream. Helga brought this person to Aslog. The three women were all very curious about him. The wanderer said his name was Harbard, although he didn't explicitly say he was a god. His words intentionally or unintentionally mythologized himself, leaving the three women stunned. Over the next few days, Aslog seemed to be under a spell. She didn't even take care of her children and went out every day to find Harbard and have him tell stories of Valhalla. Siggy was relatively calm. She advised Aslog to pay attention to her identity. She was now not only the queen but also the mother of several children, but Aslog wouldn't listen at all. She left the children for Siggy to take care of and hurried out to find Harbard. It must be said, Harbard's skill in deceiving people was indeed impressive. He lured Aslog to a dilapidated room. With just a few simple words, he made Aslog take off her clothes on her own initiative, and even feel that mating with him was her greatest honor. At the same time, Siggy was taking care of three children and couldn't handle it at all. In a moment of inattention, two of the children slipped out. Siggy hurriedly went out to search. She chased after them all the way to the back mountain, only to see the two children walking towards the dangerous ice. No matter how Siggy shouted, the two children completely ignored her. They seemed to be attracted by some mysterious force. Left with no choice, Siggy could only follow, but as soon as she touched the ice, she heard the sound of ice cracking. In a flash, the two kids fell through a hole in the ice. Siggy rushed over without regard for her own safety, but she couldn't see the children anymore. With no time to think, Siggy hurriedly plunged into the icy lake water. Although Siggy rescued the two children, she had stayed underwater for too long and ultimately sank to the bottom of the lake forever. After learning of Siggy's death, the guilty Aslog began to intentionally distance herself from Harbard. Harbard didn't leave immediately, but first went to say goodbye to Aslog. As Harbard was about to leave, Aslog asked who he really was.
Just a wanderer.
Helga chased after him, her eyes fixed on the direction Harbard was leaving. Just then, a white mist suddenly rushed in. When the mist dispersed, the mysterious man from the dream had vanished without a trace. Helga stood there, stunned. This made her realize that this man might really be a god. If you think only Ragnar was cuckolded, then you're still too shallow. After winning the battle, the Allied forces began heading towards Wessex. Ethelwulf missed his wife very much. It's just that he didn't know that Judith, who stayed at home, had also prepared a green hat for him. Under Judith's crazy seduction, Athelstan ultimately couldn't resist the temptation, and our Lagertha wasn't idle either. During this time, she was immersed in the joy of carnal pleasure with Egbert every day. Lagertha's charm had already made Egbert unable to extricate himself. He wanted Lagertha to stay by his side and no longer cling to her northern title, but Lagertha was born with the Vikings' fighting blood in her veins. She naturally couldn't indulge in lovemaking. Moreover, Lagertha understood that she and Egbert were just putting on an act for the occasion. Soon, everyone returned to Wessex's capital. Egbert warmly entertained everyone, but power was what Egbert and Ragnar really cared about. On the surface, they cooperated seamlessly, but their words were full of undercurrents. Egbert wanted to control the real power in Mercia, but he couldn't openly seize it. He could only choose to manipulate behind the scenes. Egbert wanted Quenthrith and her brother to jointly rule the kingdom of Mercia and pay in taxes every year, but unexpectedly, at the night banquet, in order to have the throne all to herself, Quenthrith actually personally poisoned her own brother to death. Just like that, Quenthrith became the sole ruler of Mercia.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, please rise and raise your cups to the sole and only ruler of Mercia.
After completing the agreement with Egbert, Ragnar took the Viking troops and prepared to return to the Kattegat Strait. On the ship, Ragnar repeatedly asked Athelstan about Paris, since Athelstan had been there before. Athelstan described the splendor of Paris, the gold everywhere. The abbeys were dozens of times richer than those in England. Ragnar's eyes lit up. It seemed he had already decided on his raiding target for this summer. Seeing them chatting so happily, Floki in the next boat was instantly filled with jealousy. He had always disliked Athelstan, not only because Athelstan was getting closer to Ragnar, but also because Athelstan believed in Christianity, which went against their belief in the Norse gods. And for Floki, belief was his everything. After a few days of tossing, Ragnar's fleet finally returned to the Kattegat Strait. The ground full of wounded made this westward expedition seem a bit battered. Many brothers who had fought shoulder to shoulder didn't make it back alive. Rollo also didn't see Siggy. Aslog's eyes were evasive. She told Rollo that Siggy had died at the bottom of the lake while saving Ragnar's sons. This made Rollo heartbroken. He regretted not treating Siggy well before, but Ragnar's mind was full of questions. He questioned Aslog why it was Siggy taking care of his children. Where had she gone at the time? Of course, Aslog wouldn't mention her infidelity. She lied, saying they took turns taking care of the children. This reason obviously couldn't convince Ragnar. He still wanted to continue questioning Aslog, but she left on the pretext of going to see Porin. The disfigured Porin naturally didn't want to see Aslog either, and spoke in an unfriendly tone. With no other option, Aslog could only go home. As soon as she got home, she began undressing, wanting to be intimate with Ragnar, but Ragnar just wants to know why Siggy is the one taking care of their children and is not interested in sex. This left Aslog with no way to proceed. She could only throw a tantrum, saying Ragnar must have a new love in England and didn't want to touch her anymore. Ragnar had no choice but to relent and not continue to investigate further. But how could paper possibly contain fire? Floki also felt there was more to Siggy's death. Under his questioning, his wife Helga finally told the truth.
He seduced Aslog. She slept with him. It is because of him that she was not looking after the children.
And he said his name was Harbard. You're sure he said that?
Yes, he said that.
As Ragnar's best friend, Floki would definitely tell Ragnar about this, but what made him even more curious was the Wanderer's name, because Harbard was the alias the king of the gods, Odin, liked to use. This made Floki also start to think that this person who slept with Aslog might really be a god. At the same time, bad news reached Lagertha. It turned out that during the days she was on the expedition, her lover Calf had usurped her title and wealth. Lagertha was so angry she was speechless. She never imagined this dog would bite its owner. Lagertha found Ragnar, hoping he could help her regain her title. But Ragnar's words instantly made her heart go half cold. Ragnar claimed he didn't want to start another civil war, causing more of their people to sacrifice. He seemed to have long forgotten that Lagertha had once come to his aid in his time of crisis. Unable to resist Lagertha's persuasion through soft and hard tactics, Ragnar had no choice but to perfunctorily say he would go negotiate with Kaf together with her in a few days. In fact, at this time, Ragnar's mind was entirely on Paris. He found the seer, wanting to ask what the outcome would be if he attacked Paris this time. The seer told Ragnar,
I can see that not the living, but the dead will conquer Paris. And I also see that the bear will be crowned by a princess, which does not bode too well for you, King Ragnar.
The seer's words didn't seem like a good omen, but nothing could stop Ragnar's desire for Paris. Ragnar gathered everyone and announced the plan to raid Paris this summer. Ragnar's speech had everyone's blood boiling. They all expressed their desire to go to Paris and have a good plunder. Just as everyone was cheering and rejoicing, one person felt he had been deceived.
What about your promise?
What promise?
To visit my earldom, to go to Harbard, to speak to the usurper.
Left with no choice, Ragnar accompanied Lagertha to Harbard. Lagertha originally thought Ragnar had come to back her up, but she never imagined that Ragnar would immediately act very warmly towards Kaf and even invite him to go raid Paris together. This instantly petrified Lagertha. She was thoroughly disappointed. She felt like a clown being played by Ragnar. Lagertha was furious with Ragnar's actions. After returning to Ragnar's territory, she left without a moment's stay, and Ragnar didn't take Lagertha's departure to heart at all. Floki found him and laid out a slog's infidelity. However, Floki thought Ragnar should feel honored instead.
Do you not know who Harbard is? Harbard is another name for Odin. It was Odin who slept with his wife, the god Odin who came to Kattegat.
On the other hand, Siggy's death has once again left Rollo in a drunken stupor. Rollo found the seer to express his dissatisfaction. He felt his life had lost all hope, as if all the luck belonged to his brother Ragnar. But he couldn't hate Ragnar, even though his lover died because of Ragnar's 2 children. Upon hearing Rollo's words, the seer actually burst out laughing.
What is there to laugh about?
Rollo, if you truly knew what the gods have in store for you, you would go down now and dance naked on the beach.
I don't understand.
I tell you as I told Ragnar, the bear will marry a princess, and I can tell you that you will be present at the ceremony.
Although Rollo didn't understand the meaning of this sentence now, it at least indicated that he would completely turn his life around in the near future.